And my question would be, like, what could be real synergy between the Ukrainian and European defense industry? What is the perfect model, how it should like in practice, and what is your key lessons into building this common production line capacity in Germany and in Ukraine?
And obviously there are many lessons that we can take out of the Ukrainian operations. And the majority of us, the industry and the manufacturers, are talking about their feedback loop. And definitely it is one of the most important things that we are seeing here in Ukraine. And the ability to use this feedback loop for further development and production is precious. But I probably would emphasize the importance of general operations that any international company, European companies that really is eager to establish Ukrainian presence would be able to use for European manufacturing, European procedures, scaling up production, understanding what does it mean to build the resilient production, the resilient procedures here in Ukraine. And this is something that cannot be just, now it probably may be copy-paste, but in no way it cannot be experienced without actually making this operation during the wartime here. And this is something that needs to be thoroughly learned, dissected, because being constantly under threat of losing your production facility, being constantly under threat losing the R&D capacities, this situation is actually making us think every day about their not just resilience, but about their continuity of the processes here. And this is not so obvious for our counterparties in European Union, in the US, because everyone is just thinking about, as I told, about this feedback loop, about how this technology transfer should be aligned. But one should also think about how this processes, how this manufacturing processes, how this business administration being done under these kind of threats should be scaled up, brought back to our partners, and they're adopted. And bringing their joint ventures as an example is a good way of experiencing that. And we as Quantum System establishing the first joint venture under the Build with Ukraine program in Germany just showcase it. We showcase the possibility to scale in a pace that was really of a surprise for German stakeholders. And this is a good example, and this is a blueprint that would help our partners to scale up and to make their production resilient as well. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Oleksandr. We also have with us Yaroslav, who used to be a startup founder in civilian sphere before the full-scale invasion. And when the full-scale invasion started, Yaroslav switched from civilian sphere to defense tech. My first question would be, like, why did you decide to do so? And does it make sense today for European Union and NATO countries to simply import this Ukrainian experience, to simply, like, start maybe some technological production lines in Europe, or like what would be the best model from your perspective in terms of business, first of all, perspective, to start this cooperation with European Union? And like it would be really valuable to reflect on your personal story and how you see your personal story actually influence this European cooperation.
Sure. Yeah, it's great to be here. Glad to see so many people in the audience. You are the most resilient audience surviving for this late panel. Thank you so much. I am a founder and CEO of The Fourth Law. We're a leading on-drone AI and thermal sensing company. And indeed, previously I was a founder of a company called PetCube, which is a world leader in pet cameras. So cameras allow you to see your dog when you're not at home and fling them in treat. So we basically went from making cameras that fling treats to dogs to making cameras that fling explosives to the occupiers. More or less same line of business. I did have this incredible opportunity to live and work in Silicon Valley for 6 years, 2014 to 2020. And I certainly learned a lot there about how fast-growing, ambitious tech businesses are being built. And I think a lot of that playbook is now either applicable and being applied to Ukrainian defense field. In fact, one of my good old friends and colleagues, Oleg Roginsky, is heading another famous firm called U-Force. And just like myself, he went through Y Combinator in Silicon Valley and lived and worked there for a while. But also, the same Silicon Valley playbook, I'm seeing it sort of reinvented, as in reinventing the bicycle, being reinvented here from the grounds up in Ukraine. And all of us should remember that Silicon Valley started as a defense center and grew from that defense industry. Unfortunately, now we're seeing the opposite direction. We're seeing the civilian technologies and civilian entrepreneurial experience powering the next wave of defensive technologies. And it seems like it will be a while until as many spectators theorize, they think that, well, maybe this whole defense tech boom will be able to then be transferred to civilian technology. So I would warn against such theorizing. I think we will have to focus on defense for a while, for at least the next decade. The world is clearly rearming, and that's going to be a big challenge. In terms of bringing the Ukrainian experience to Europe or to the US, I think there are a couple important things that many observers of the situation miss. And one such situation is, one such feature is that the fact that it's not the data from the Ukrainian battlefield that's the most valuable. It's not the ingenuity of Ukrainian engineers that is something incredible and unrepeatable. Ukraine, in fact, has one and only one major strategic advantage on the global stage. And that advantage is the fact that we've been in war with Russia for the last 12 years. There is not a single other country in the world that wants to take that strategic advantage away from us. Unfortunately, we're happy to share, by the way. If any takers, please raise your hand. But that, in fact, forms our strategic advantage. And because of that, Ukrainian weapons become so powerful because of the constant iteration loop between the inventors, engineers, civilians, volunteers, and the military. And if you just take a drone interceptor from Ukraine today, bring it to Germany or to Canada, and start building the same interceptors, you'll be like, wow, we're doing great, made so many interceptors. But half a year from now, that interceptor will be obsolete, so obsolete, and you will not even know why. And therefore, I think that there obviously has to be this cooperation with these companies that have grew along with these military units, that have it in their DNA, not only thousands of iterations of feedback that they've had with the military, but also they have in their DNA the method of how to gather the feedback, how to process it, how to implement it in the product, how to iterate fast. And I'll finish this with one idea and recommendation which most people I share it with, they say, this is a brilliant idea, that's exactly what we should do. But saying that and doing that is a bit of a different thing. However, what I think the future model for defense procurement should be globally for countries which are not at war it should be a model of insurance, of monthly payments to an organization which insures you in a case of war, in a case of major conflicts. So that insurance would look like your monthly drone fleet subscription, Netflix for drones, okay? So you would sign as a government, you would sign a 5-year contract with a number of different manufacturers, not one, with a manufacturer of ISR drones, interceptor drones, FPV drones, deep strike drones. In those contracts, you would have a commitment to a certain number of drones, a fleet. Say 1,000 FPVs is one fleet, and you procure 100 of those. But that fleet does not only include the 1,000 hardware drones. It includes regular software updates, once a year hardware updates, instructions, training, support, etc. But most importantly, the commitment by the producing company to scale their manufacturing and deliver for each 1,000 you're sort of renting from them, deliver 10,000 within 30 days if the order comes from you as a customer. I believe that that is the most likely and smartest possible model for drone service, drone fleet as a service, which ensures us against getting obsolete, but also make sure that we have the ammunition, we have the capacity, and our industry has the capacity, and our industry has the money to keep innovating, keep implementing the latest feedback into their products. Thank you.
Thank you, Yaroslav. We're lucky to have a representative from Azov with us, Mykyta. Recently, Azov released footage showing a Ukrainian drone flying over the Donbass arena in temporarily occupied Donetsk. It's a huge achievement, and it would be valuable for our audience if you could share this story with us, which is possible to share publicly. And it also would be valuable to reflect on how military could help industry to be successful into developing their technologies, and how industry, maybe from Ukrainian side and from European side, could be the most useful for the military in Ukrainian frontline, because it's the main topic for each company to present the product which is actually successful into defending Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Answering the first question, those who didn't see our video, recently Azov Corp made public a video where we demonstrate how we cut down logistics near Donetsk using our drones in the north, in the south, east, and west. Can I open certain details on how we reached that agreement? No, unfortunately not, because for me, the point when we can share our experience comes when it becomes a system. At the moment, at this stage, it is a well worked out element of testing in combat situation. This is the way I would describe it.
I cannot, of course, share with you how we reached this level, but company representatives may have an inkling, and if you have some more specific questions, you feel free to approach me. I can give you a few hints, and you will probably guess the rest. Now, as far as interaction with the military, rather military with the manufacturers and our partner countries, what I'd like to focus on is one important detail. Let's start with Ukrainian manufacturers first. Until we treat this as business, we will keep losing. I understand that this is not exactly a popular thought, but for me, as the military man, it is very important that the feedback that we share with a company, they should very quickly work on this, optimize, and make it possible for us to destroy the enemy. When the whole country understands that there is no business, it's not about earning money, when everyone understands that our first goal is to destroy the enemy, we will succeed. But let me tell you something. Many manufacturers have built the model of cooperating with the military. They don't really talk much about money or super profits. They want to destroy the enemy, just like we, the military. And when we arrive at this symbiosis with the manufacturers, we will all be happier and succeed. What I'd like to say to our foreign partners, do not take only our military experience, but also look at what we've accomplished in the civilian sector. Because in the past, first as the brigade, then later on as a corps, we would often encounter people who would simply want to earn money. They would offer goods that would be described as something super and at exorbitant price, only for us to discover later that this can be purchased a lot cheaper and at a higher quality. So, be it drones that we receive from many manufacturers, we often say, no, we don't like this, we're not going to work with this, we can buy cheaper and more effective equipment. So, to foreign partners, I'd like to say, learn from our mistakes. Because, Russia is an ambitious country with imperious ambitions. I don't think they will stop at Ukraine. I'm sure you understand that. And what Russia is doing with Ukraine today, for them, is like a test bed to see what's effective today, so that they can use the most effective methods of warfare to attack other countries. I don't want to scare anyone. We're all grown-ups who understand what Russia wants. They want to rule the world. It's clear. A sick, paralytic person is in charge in Russia, so instead of thinking of earning as much money as possible and sell up your product at a highest possible price, understand that you're not just doing this for us, for Ukraine, but for yourself as well, for other European nations. You should be interested in creating, manufacturing effective kamikaze drone that you can replicate easily and quickly, and that can change quickly if necessary, depending on the changing environment on the battlefield, warfare equipment, etc. And the last thing I'd like to say is that we need to focus on human qualities first and foremost. Why people want to earn money? Because obviously they want to have a nice life, but there is human nature. Nothing we can do about it. But what would be useful both for Ukraine and other European nations is to work with your population, work with the public, invest into education, explain to them why during the war we have to stand up and defend our country. Because even we, a courageous nation, we cannot recruit enough people. And people is the most important thing, because all drones are operated by humans. So without humans, without people, without soldiers, you can't win the war. It simply won't fly. Thank you, Mykyta. Obviously, the army is the foundation of Ukrainian independence, and just like it is important to export technological experience, it is important to export military experience. If there was one thought that you could express to share with NATO or our EU partners, what can they learn from us? Work with people and ability to replicate. I would say that these are the most important things, because if the person doesn't understand why they're doing this or that, you can't force the person. By the same token, if you're operating a drone, for instance, you have to be sure that he's there, he's ready to operate, and to move away from red tape, bureaucracy, because oftentimes when we had to introduce changes, create new units, new positions, we would see that, red tape would slow things down, and we simply cannot afford to wait for decisions to go through all the bureaucratic stages of approval. Therefore, we need to be a lot more flexible and speedily and efficiently make decisions and get things done. Doing away with paperwork, so being able to adapt quickly to the swiftly changing environment.
Dear Mayor General, may I ask, what is your vision about integrating drones and this new logic of warfare into NATO doctrine? What is your personal approach? Maybe what main lessons from Ukraine could you adapt within new defense logic of the alliance? And it would be really important for us to hear what is the best way for Ukrainian industry to be integrated within your logic of work and your logic of defense. Thank you.
Thank you for having me here. I'm honored and pleased. And first of all, let me just express my sincere admiration. And I'm just have to recognize that I'm humble in front of real heroes and people which are producing real tools of this resistance of Ukraine and the challenge for or the journey to freedom. So I have no comparison, just analyzing the aspect from Brussels, from long distance, it's quite different. But I do have some ideas about I call it drone revolution. So I start my pitch with drone revolution has started and there is no way back. By the way, the reverse coin of drone revolution is counter-US. It's mandatory for all troops. It doesn't matter who you are and where you are coming from, what's your level of technology. Without counter-US technology on all domains, air, land, sea, you have zero chances to survive the drone-saturated environment and EW-saturated environment. The problem with drones, I have to recognize that I started the research on this matter 6 years ago, before the invasion in 22. So I kind of anticipated some of the moves on the we call it military affair area. So drones, first aspect, network-centric warfare. What does it mean? It means that the battlefield is becoming transparent. You have live transmission, video links will transmit every movement of ground forces, naval forces, sometimes air forces, because you have thermal camera, which can pick up some drone's signature, or radars, sensitive radars. So the battlefield is transparent. you have difficulties to hide. You have difficulties to hide your signature, thermal signature, or EW signature. And this triggers a compression of the, sorry for the name, but it's called kill chain. So kill chain now at the tactical level becomes under minutes, and the operational level under probably 10 to 20 minutes, which is unheard standards even for most, let's say, exquisite forces. Why? Because this compressing decision cycle, it's all about speed. So in wartime, if you have speed, you might survive. If you don't have speed, the others might be first to strike you. The other thing what drones brought, it brought multiple missions. So we started the war with 2 missions, ISR and deep precision strike or precision strike, and now we have over 10 different missions. Some of them we never heard about it, but Ukrainians, they demonstrated us that they can bring the resupply revolution. Yeah, this is a revolution in resupply, the tactical level in the front line. So they do this not only with US, but also with UGVs, and we have a family, we call it the family of drones, UAS, it's aerial drones, USVs, sea drones, and UGVs. And on top of this, we have UVs, which are underwater drones. So what I'm trying to say with this, we are facing a robotic wave in about 5 to 10 years. I suspect that the first wave will be fully autonomous, and robotics will be embedded into the structure of force, where we have a mixed force between unmanned and manned. And this is another findings or conclusion from this war. What superbly Ukrainians demonstrated during the war, they could achieve local and temporary superiority with using drones. What does it mean? It means that you can face a larger opponent with many resources and a larger army, but creating this local temporary superiority, you can achieve tactical operational objectives. So this is a very interesting lesson learned from NATO. And I should admit that ACT has a lot of links with the Ukrainian combat experience, starting with JATEC, Joint Analysis Training Center in Bydgoszcz in Poland, where Valery Vishnyvsky from Ukraine is commanding the Ukrainian group, which is bringing to NATO combat experience from different areas. And also our group is trying to bring the best procedure, the best requirements, and the best steps ahead for Ukrainians to modernize their forces for different echelons, including the high ones like core level and beyond core. So we are doing this in JATEC, but we have also continuum innovation cycle, where we bring joint capabilities, joint companies from Western countries and Ukraine to test drones and counter US drones in a different environment. So ACT, we are interested also to test what are the performances and the limits of each system, drones or counter drones. So that's why we have a cycle, continuous cycle in all over Europe in ranges to identify, I'm going to give you technical data like ranges, PK. PK is probability kill, probability of interception, or C2. And that's the biggest challenge for us, how to integrate drones and counter drones in the C2. So it's a future step. But coming back to lesson learned, if I would nominate other important steps, what we learned from our Ukrainian friends was the saturation level, which, by the way, was played by the both sides. What does it mean, saturation? What does it take for an air defense to defend the place and has a limit? And above this limit, we call it saturation level of this place in case of attack. And what you have to calculate to achieve saturation in a combined method. And that brought us to the next level of MDO effects pushed to the tactical level. What does it mean, MDO? Multi-domain operation, bringing space products, bringing cyber attacks when it's needed, bringing EW in a very orchestrated manner, but not to forget deception and decoy, which plays a tremendous role today on the battlefield. Without deception and decoy, no operation is viable or doesn't reach the target. So you need deception and decoy as a standard design planning consideration from the get-go. I will stop here because I can talk for hours. I just had my training with media for a couple, so you have to stop me when we have 5 hours, I understand, yes? Nevertheless, these are a good lesson. Now I give you why the revolution, it doesn't work so perfectly with Western industry. And we have here a few considerations. We started with 2 missions, and now we have 10 missions: resupply, communication relay, direct fire support, and others, which makes complicated area in defining operational requirements for drones. When we say drones, each one in the room, they will think about a specific drone. Everybody saw it in a specific time. The range of drones is quite extensive, from micro drones up to mosquito size. Yes, Chinese just announced the mosquito size of drones for surveillance and reconnaissance, up to NATO Global Hawk. I just touched a Global Hawk in Sigonella, is the size of Boeing 737. So all those are drones, but they are also on the ground, they are also in the sea. And Chinese, they move to another direction, legacy robotic operated drones. What does it mean, legacy? That means the AI and technology can adapt now robotic arms for legacy systems like, I'll give an example, MiG-17, MiG-19, or the tank T-72, to be operated to do what? To do that saturation attack in case, and to breach any kind of defense, and then to employ exquisite weapons or missiles or other sort of drones. So they are going in multiple directions, and that's the first challenge, to define what operational mission, what operational requirements do we need for each type of drone in terms of range, lethality, specific objective. Then it comes the market. The market is flooded with what? With drones and counter-drone technology. We just acquired in ACT 220 companies in Europe. Some of them, they are working with Ukraine, but probably they are over 1,000. Why? Because the market is going to be next year 32 billions in counter-US and drones. That's the estimate from the counter-US hub in London. So 32 billion is growing very fast in this technology. And the problem is that you don't have a framework. We do not have a framework to establish what is good in drones and counter-drones and what is not functioning. Mm-hmm. The Ukrainians, colleagues and friends, they have this advantage of Brave One, where you have an ecosystem based on points and reviews, and you can decide what is functioning and what is not functioning, and you can adapt on the spot. This ecosystem is not replicated in the West, and usually in West you don't construct the solutions around the problem statement. You just wait for the market to provide the latest technology on different domain, and then if it's battle proven, tested, and the political process is done, you're going to run an acquisition program sometime between 1 year and 5 years.
Yeah.
For the yes, I'm.
Unfortunately, yeah, time is limited.
You told me 1 hour, so I. Sorry for that,
yeah,
but I told you to stop me. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I want to integrate actually industry into this discussion. We have Oleksandr with us, who is major FPV producers from Ukraine, and other colleagues from Europe and NATO countries may say that, like, what is the matter of procuring FPV drones from Ukraine, because technology is so fast, like, it really could be changed every and each day. Like, what would be your answer to that? Like, does it make sense for EU and NATO countries to, like, simply import FPV drones, or, like, drone technology overall, or what would be the, like, perfect model of this cooperation between NATO countries and Ukraine?
Thanks, Kateryna. I come back to Kyiv only a few hours ago. For the last 2 days, I was on the front line. to testing our products, to took the feedback from the military units. I'm a little bit exhausted. That's why, if you do not mind, I will shift to the Ukrainian language. Okay? Thanks. Що хочу сказати?
What I wanted to say is that, first of all, FPV products, that was our first product, and as a mass-scale producer, we manufacture over 80,000 units a month. We're one of the largest players on the Ukrainian market, but still, we do have some other products. We have UGVs, you have interceptors, UGVs, interceptors, and deep strike drones. That's what we're testing recently. As far as cooperation and interaction with foreign partners is concerned, I'm really in support what the Colonel has just said and all the statements that he's made. What is the difference between us and our European partners? First of all, it is the cycle of innovations. We developed our product, we manufacture our product. I go out to test it, I get feedback, and now I'm speaking in front of you. And then I'm going to our manufacturing center to give them the feedback. And then in a month, we will be able to update the product, and it would be relevant for Ukrainian army. This is something our foreign partners cannot do, with all respect. We have online feedback from the front lines every day. We have mobile teams, civilian engineers who are located close to the theater of operations, and they're getting that feedback. And we also understand how you can make war without having the necessary resources. This is a key element. Every time my foreign partners ask me, so it is not Miltech, you assemble it out of consumer goods. This is something you could buy in a shop. Yes, indeed, you can buy it in a shop, but not in a European shop, because mostly they're manufactured in China. And it is a major problem for the future, looking ahead, for the European military technologies, because those articles that used to be supplied to us by Western partners, they could be $250,000, and they can carry 20 kilos to 200 kilometers. Here it costs $20,000, and it can carry 25 kilos to 300 kilometers, and it has been assembled of consumer goods. So here is the difference between Ukrainian Miltech and international Western Miltech. Now the negative, the reverse side of the coin is we do not have access to deep technologies. We do not have deep technologies that are subject to ITAR sanctions, ITAR requirements and things like that. And this is the element of our cooperation between European prime contractors and Ukrainian startups and innovation companies. We have the experience, we have the scaling, we can scale up fairly quickly, we can understand how we can come up with new iterations of the product, because what used to work 3 months ago is not working today at all. So, as it has already been noted by our military, there needs to be adaptability and flexibility. In modern warfare, you cannot make war with means that were manufactured 5 years ago. You cannot make war with something that was manufactured a year ago. Particularly, this refers to drones or any sort of unmanned systems. And a week ago, we signed an agreement with Windcopter, and you have a representative of the company here. You can raise your hand. It's a German company called Windcopter, and we signed this GB, and the Ukrainian president and the German chancellor were there. So we are going to manufacture reconnaissance drones, and we also signed another agreement with the German company to manufacture interceptor drones that first of all, will be supplied to Ukrainian military, but we will also scale up this knowledge base, and we will develop it together with our international partners. So this collaboration between Ukrainian and international industries is something that we need to have to be successful and to provide protection and to provide defense for the entire Europe. But what we have today are Ukrainian military who are holding the line, and they're providing continuous feedback and help us adapt our products, and we understand this cost per kill, which is the critically important specific characteristic, and we do realize what the cycle of innovations is very short. It is 3 weeks and up to a month. We can scale up with the elements, with the components that are easy to purchase, that are easy to find, and these 3 elements are the most important to achieve integration with the general defense system in Western nations, because you can, in an asymmetric war, you cannot operate only with expensive and systems, because a drone that is worth $500 can destroy it very quickly. German companies and European companies are finding solutions to provide protection against FPV drones. So they can come up with a solution in 2 years, and Ukrainian will find out how they can circumvent that in a month. And this is how this is going to proceed. So adaptability is one of the key components of hybrid asymmetric war. And in my opinion, this is the war that will continue. And I believe we are already in the middle of the Third World War, and it is not a nuclear war as we had thought, but it is a hybrid war and an asymmetric war. So this collaboration between Ukrainian and international experience, this is where they see the future. So this joint venture concept between Ukrainian and international companies is the most effective system for development and interaction. And I do not know how politically correct it will sound. I do not believe in exports of Ukrainian weapon systems. Not because we do not have enough weapons. A lot of Ukrainian companies have fewer contracts than the capacity to manufacture. But Ukrainian weaponry without Ukrainian soldiers will simply not work, because our principal element is the tactic of using this equipment, of using this system, those systems. If Ukrainians provide their interceptors to Arab states or to European states, local military will need at least a year to figure out how they can work those systems. You need to train people and so on. That's why we need to be talking about integration and interaction. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bohdan, you're also representative of the industry. You are co-founder of the drone company called Buntar. What is your approach within the cooperation with European Union? And maybe you have some message to our European partners. What should or could they adjust into cooperation with Ukrainian industry? And after you finish your speech, I will ask each speaker on the stage actually to reflect with one phrase as a message to our European partners. What would you ask from Ukrainian industry to change in their politics or policy in the level of EU and NATO countries? The same question for our military and Azov member. And for NATO part, I would ask, maybe you have a message to Ukrainian industry, and when industry will finish, it would be important to hear your perspective. Thank you. Bohdan, please. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Kateryna. I've spent 2 weeks traveling across the US and Europe to attract more capabilities to build in Ukraine for Ukrainian army for our drones. And we are building reconnaissance drones. They've been quite effective on front lines. In fact, recently we did a mission where in 5 minutes we destroyed on the ground more Russian-Iranian Shahed one-way attack drones than the entire US military in Middle East, which was quite a big success. And obviously we have quite big demand from Ukrainian army, and we were busy scaling it. And while I was traveling, I saw a lot of friends, a lot of people who support Ukraine and who try to build something good on top of that. But at the same time, I felt something very strange, something very odd, that felt very unjust and honestly at the same time very stupid. We see a lot of companies and a lot of governments who try to go to Ukraine to get some knowledge of combat tactics or specific hardware that works on battlefield, or a combination of that, and then go abroad and just copy that, just use it without Ukraine. And we feel it very unjust, not only to the sacrifice that every soldier do on front line, but also at the same time, it is very silly because all of the challenges that was raised on this panel today, like lead time, or would it be effective in 2 months or 6 months, it looks like those questions can be answered without Ukraine. And what we feel that the Ukrainian industry needs to change from product approach to a solution-based approach, where together with Europe, Ukraine and Europe can create solutions where Ukrainians can bring to the table the technology, the absolutely outstanding know-how of the battlefield that was gained in a fight, and Ukrainian people can build this technology, because we have quite big amount of people who want to work in Miltech in Ukraine. They want to help somehow to build technology. And Europe, in another way, can help with resource, because it is true that a lot of manufacturers are understaffed. They don't have enough capital to build what they could build. The same goes with training. If we deliver a drone, it will be absolutely useless without a proper training. And we feel that this training should be very constant, because battlefield is really changing. In a month, up to like 2 months, technology needs to be adapted really a lot. So while I understand the motion from a lot of companies and countries to just go abroad and share what they have, I want to highlight the importance of thinking about the national interests of Ukraine and also thinking about the future of Europe, because we believe that the war is already ongoing and Europe will take a part of it at some point, sadly. And we feel that only together we can do a good protection for our continent. So the answer would be we need to cooperate deeply on a solution-based approach where every piece of technology is linked directly to what's going on front lines and also to people who will use it effectively, either in conflict or preparing for any conflict. If you would have enough good equipment, which can be very modular, like you have a drone and it have a radio link, which obviously can be outdated in a few months. Yeah, but the manufacturers need to think for such modularity when they deliver a drone in a concept that, for example, Yaroslav mentioned. And the radio can be switched and swept instantly when the new threat is emerged. So I believe that would be the right answer.
Thank you, Bogdan. Yaroslav, Oleksandr, and Alexander, what would your message to European partners?
Yeah, thank you. My message would be to get prepared for actual war very fast if you don't want to have one. I think the probability of Russia attacking Baltics and China attacking Taiwan over the next 2.5 years while the current U.S. administration is still in power, that probability is incredibly high, and there is a huge danger for that, and Europe is completely unprepared. I've spent some time traveling European capitals I always am depressed after talking to people there, and sometimes I hear things like, "Oh, but things got much better lately," and it's like you used to walk 20 meters a day, and now you walk 200 meters a day, and you're bragging for 10xing your results. And what I'm telling you is that ahead of you, 6 months ahead, you have a marathon to run, and you're no more prepared for that than you were in the past when you were walking only 20 meters a day. So currently, how many people who know how to fly an FPV drone are there in whole NATO army? Is there more than 1,000? Of those 1,000 or couple thousand people who know how to fly a drone, how many are actually battle ready to fight in actual combat that our Ukrainian soldiers have to fight in? I don't even ask about interceptors and deep strikes, etc. So start training your pilots in mass. Start localizing supply chain. Think about complete cutoff of Chinese and American supply chains at the same time. And start actually doing things, not just talking about doing things. Thank you.
Oleksandr.
To elaborate a bit more on what Yaroslav told, is just the sovereignty on components is the key. Like disrupting their procurement is the key for our enemies, and we need to invest into the components right now, right here, to those components that should be available from the shelves. Without that, we won't be able to have this resilience and continuity. Thanks.
Oleksandr, would you add a message to European partners?
We need resources. We needed them a lot. Thank you so much that it was finally accepted, the loan for the $90 billion, because the war is very expensive and we protect the Europe by our blood. That's why it's not a huge amount of funds. What I would like to say that we need to be in very close collaboration, because as I said previously, we've got very good battle-proof experience, unfortunately, that we paid a very high price for it. And we could integrate our experience to the European forces and be stronger together. Thank you so much.
Yeah. What would be one message from NATO to Ukrainian industry?
Well, it's difficult now to say anything more, but a few direct observation, what I've seen on the ground, and I've seen some good examples are joint production. So joint production with different countries, NATO countries, will accelerate the penetration of the market and will give access to funds like SAFE, European SAFE funds, and also access to both armies, specific host nation in Europe and the Ukrainian army. And that's why it's important to have this kind of joint production as a standard basis. Also, in joint production, you have also quicker integration in the NATO standards, like SAPIEN protocol, like NATO standards 4817 and other criteria which NATO keeps towards C2. Now, in terms of predictability, we need the open architecture in Ukrainian products, and to delineate between what is changeable and volatile in face of the EW race and the counter-US race, because the drone technology is pushed by two competition. One with EW, with jamming and communication, and the second with what kind of technology can you employ against drones, and this is adapting very fast. So some of the elements will still remain on the market, like frames, engines, or other components, which you can make stocks out of it. But some elements have to be changed from, like software. Software is like any computer. We change, and my iPhone is changing maybe 20 times a month. So those are changeable. And I like your idea on services, which now is also present in space technology to provide to large defense organization services. And I would go furthermore. Why don't we have in Ukraine a center for UAV/FPV training for NATO? Like we have a lot of training for Ukrainians in NATO countries in Europe, but we don't have a training center where you can express direct your experience, knowledge, and vision about drone warfare in the future. And then you can modulate a little bit about in the area of education, training, and exercise for NATO forces and interoperable. That would be a great stage, in my opinion.
Yeah, we absolutely support it. And the last message. Mykyta, чи можемо попросити одне послання від українського?
Could you please one message from you to European partners to wrap up this panel? I cannot do with one. Well, first of all, let's learn to be adaptive and flexible. This will give you a chance to buy time, and time matters. But don't think that drones are panacea. Again, without people, nothing will work out. So work with your people. And a couple of words about what Major said, like that everything can be covered by drones. The example from 2 months ago, there was a column of equipment of the enemy, and it was foggy weather, no observation, no chance to strike, and the column moves in easily and smoothly, and then everything depends on people, not on drones. I wanted to say something else, but I kind of seem to have lost my train of thought. So keep on supporting Ukraine, because one way or another Ukraine is the shield of Europe. By our sweat and blood, we defend our motherland first of all, and we make it possible for the European societies to buy time in the meanwhile, and give you a chance to learn on our losses, unfortunately. We thank the Ukrainian military for their heroism, and we thank all the panelists for their input. Thank you.